That's the PwC.
So we're not allowed to say. Like,
Oh, okay.
I've never worked for PwC.
Okay.
On these like consulting contracts, I only work with people that are working for PwC. So like,
Okay.
that's the relationship.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Professor Gavala, and today I have a really good friend of mine. His name is Jack McDermott. He's a consultant working in bank analytics with a degree in applied mathematics and computational statistics from Notre Dame. And today, Jack, I just want you to introduce yourself, and then we can dive into more in how your profession kind of integrates with the YouTube channel, or specifically engineering.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. As you said, I majored at the University of Notre Dame in both finance and applied computational math statistics, which we refer to as ACMS, /shorter. Before that, I grew up in Mount Prospect, went to high school with you. That's how we met. Good times. And then since graduating, I've kind of split my time between banking analytics, as you said, but also the residential construction industry. How those relate to this podcast from more of an engineering perspective, we might have to get creative to make that connection. But I know you want to talk about modeling and different data techniques, which I'm sure have a lot of crossover. So we'll cover those topics here.
Sounds good. Yeah. And for those who are watching the video, I just kind of want to talk about the intentions of the interview. And this is for anyone with a technical or engineering background, technically sound or engineering background in either in high school or an undergrad, but is willing to kind of diverge towards things like quantitative or computational techniques, statistics, financial computations, finance modeling for risk management, pricing, trading strategies. And you can even watch this interview if you're looking to get into top companies like Deloitte, Citadel, Goldman Sachs, James Streets, and a lot more. So let's start from the beginning. You said that you went to Notre Dame. Kind of tell us, walk us through your application process, or like what it was like growing up, and what type of things did you have to do in order to get into Notre Dame?
I had to do as much as I could possibly do to get Notre Dame. It wasn't easy for me.
Yeah.
But it did give me like a central guiding arrow to like point a lot of life decisions towards. Getting to Notre Dame specifically, you had to be a good student. So that meant like taking hard classes, doing well in them. But it also, being a more liberal school, they care about being like a well-rounded student. So for me, that meant activities like journalism, football, and wrestling, and of course, it being Notre Dame, Christian school, Catholic school. There's some church service in there as well.
But in terms of like the application process, did you go through any type of interviews with any type of?
I did. I really wanted to get in. So I went there and like spoke to someone in the like applications department, but definitely not necessary. Just the standard like 3 questions that you're responding to in a writing prompt, and submit your test scores and call it a day. Okay.
And remind me the acronym of your major again.
ACMS, Applied Computational Math and Statistics.
ACMS. And what was it like every day as an ACMS major?
So really,
what type of classes did you have to take? Because I've never, coming from an engineering perspective, I haven't really like seen the curriculum for an ACMS. So just walk us through like the type of classes, the hardships, so that the viewers can kind of get a feel of what it's like to be at Notre Dame as an ACMS major.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually really happy with kind of lucking my way into picking ACMS as one of my majors. It's, in high school, I just knew that I was like decent in math classes, but didn't love it more than any other subject really. but applied computational math statistics is taking like an applied view of a math major, and it's also using computers to solve those problems. So that's where like the first two words come from. So it felt much more like real world based than more like high level theory, strictly math major. I also, as far as like the hard trials and tribulations, I didn't have as many. It was a much easier major than what I would imagine a math major would be. So more applicable, certainly in my career afterwards, and probably easier as well.
What's an example of like a hard class or like an easy class in this major?
Yeah, I mean, this would be, okay, so hard class could be like unstructured data analytics, where you're learning how to use like geolocation data or text data to feed into some of these models. But those were also like, for anyone in those majors, those are going to be like some of the most fun classes, the most interesting classes. And I feel like that frequently did pair up in that major, where like the difficult classes were the ones that you wanted to put the most time into because they were the most fun.
Okay. And then what's an easy class then? None of them were easy?
No, I don't think any of them were too bad.
Okay.
I guess like an intro to, I forgot what the class is called, but like think of like a database language class. I'm not even sure this was part of my ACMS major. It could have been in my finance major. But just like I'm sure there were classes where you're strictly just like learning a language, and those tended to be on the easier end.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, in today's world, a lot of people, go through these majors, but then they feel like they don't necessarily use it day by day. So I was going to ask you, what field or class of applied math or computational statistics do you feel you use like the most in your everyday workings currently and in the past?
I took two main takeaways from my math major. For my finance major, maybe I learned some vocabulary. Honestly, that quickly became not my primary focus early on at university. But the two main things that I took away from the math major were, one, again, being like applied and computational. You have some introduction to scripting, which was the first time I started using programming languages. We used a lot of C++ and like SPSS, which is a super old statistical like database language. They're not used anymore. Later on, like junior, senior year, you get heavily into like R and Python. You're mostly using
R and Python. Okay.
So that introduction to scripting is like the first main benefit that I took away. And the second takeaway would just be learning how to read a function, like learning how to knowing what a math formula looks like, and having like some perception of what variables in a function actually refer to. And again, like with everything having a base in the real world, the variables we'd work with wouldn't just be X and Y. It would be X for number of apples and Y for number of something else, like over time.
Do you think with this like education, do you think you could do like a computer sciences job, like a web developer, or front end or back end development?
I don't even know what a computer scientist job is, honestly. Like I feel like every computer scientist, like it's so different what they can be working on. They are going to have such a better understanding of what the computer is actually doing to get to the result. As far as our perspective, we just focus on the result and how to get there, but not why it's getting there.
I got you. Okay. All right. And then,
for example, that's all like computer science stuff. We just look at the result.
Yeah. Okay. So then I want to, before I transition to like your professional career, kind of going away from Notre Dame, I want to talk about a very controversial topic that's currently floating around that says that college is a scam. And, I just want you to dive into your thoughts on it. And, feel free to, just say anything that you feel hasn't been said yet in terms of anything that could be contradicted to the popular belief or anything like that. So what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Dip my toe into the controversy. I I mean, it's going to be relative. This is like everyone has to answer this question for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The takeaways that I got from college definitely could have gotten them elsewhere. It's like a massive privilege to be able to take 4 years and just focus on learning something and having fun and taking a break, or applying yourself and just having unlimited free time, really. You can go to classes, not everything's kind of up to you. So it's like, it's a pretty amazing phase of life. You're never going to get another one like it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
I would say to the audience though, you're probably more smarter than the average human being though, I would say. In terms of like you're saying how, you don't have to go to class, you cannot go to class.
I definitely wasn't the kid that could not go to class. Like that was not me at all. I'm just saying everyone has that choice. If they want to do well, and they're like me, they have to go to class.
Yeah.
If you don't, you get freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be helpful, but it can be a lot of debt. If you're taking on debt, I mean, that's a choice you have to make yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other thing is, especially going to a better school, it opens doors. Absolutely. I mean, it was really easy to get a job out of college because I went to class in college. And I could not have worked at the companies I worked at without that college degree.
Mm-hmm. I got you. So you would say it's not a scam. It's for your books.
No, it's definitely. I mean, if you're looking at like the price of college, like, and you're paying yourself, like,
yeah,
would not take on that debt. Luckily, that was not the position that I was in, and also very few kids at Notre Dame are in that position. Some are, but almost everyone's on financial assistance of some kind, or not paying for this themselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in terms of you going to Notre Dame, what are some things that you did that helped you land your first job, which was at Deloitte, correct?
Yes.
Right. You interned there and then you worked there, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are some few things that you did at Notre Dame? Because I know you were in boxing. In terms of like your social life, were you in any like clubs or any fraternities, things like that? Yeah.
Just honestly, I don't even remember. Yes. Okay. So I was in Student International Business Council, which is like the generic business major activity where you're like participating in some semi-real world projects for companies, and then you give that company like a presentation at the end of the 1 semester long project. So I like ticked that box, which is a good box to tick. The other big like leg up that I had at Notre Dame, it was not my grades. I mean, they were fine, but nothing spectacular. When I did a research position with one of my favorite professors, Professor Hui Nguyen, and it was the actual like research position. It wasn't a stereotypical research position where you're trying to like learn. So you're trying to like discover some new thing through research. It was more just like an extra class, like a 1 or 2 credit class, where we just like as the participants got to learn in a new area that we wouldn't have otherwise covered as part of our normal university curriculum. So the topic was trying to delta hedge a company, a stock. I think it was Raytheon Incorporated was like the random company I chose. And I was using options and the delta, which is one of the variables that describe an option. If you go on any website where you can buy an option, you'll see variables such as like delta, theta. These all relate to, after one day, how does that affect the price of the stock? If the stock changes $1, how does that affect the value of the option? So it's all just relating like one variable to the value of an option. And so like the actual project wasn't too hard, but the best part of it was to apply for that research position. We had to read some textbook. It was like futures, options, and other derivative securities, something like that. And it was just the first time where I like read a textbook on my own and tried to like learn a topic through a textbook. And again, that goes back to like realizing that with the foundation that I had after my freshman year, I could look at a formula, look at a function, and like eventually understand what it's getting at, and have like a real world understanding of how to use those formulas. So I mean, that was like a big like positive, standing out parts that I offered to companies throughout my interview process. I also like only interviewed with Deloitte, and it kind of was a fluke. It just like, it was super short, signed up kind of on a whim. And then I got the position, and when I thought about it, it seemed like decently interesting. The idea of working, you know, in like across different problems, across different companies, the whole like benefit of consulting, that intrigued me. So took a chance and went there.
Nice. In terms of, let's go back a little bit towards the research position that you did. Do you still use what you in terms of the options for like the dummy company Raytheon that you did? Do you still use that in like your everyday tradings, things like that? Or like what you learned?
No, not at all. I learned probably like not to touch options was the thing that I learned. I mean,
wait, options was a what?
Not to touch options.
Oh, okay.
It's
Okay.
like one of the things you learn.
Okay.
And also, I mean, the strategy that we were using options for was achieving the risk-free rate of return. So we were like targeting with very low variance, with like a very high degree of certainty. We were targeting the risk-free rate of return, which is like 3% back then. Now I think it's like probably higher, but like a very low annual yield. You would never want to like follow this strategy at our ages in your portfolio. We'd be looking for something much higher, which with much less work too. Like it's hard to have that guaranteed rate of return. But if you're like a big company, you might want to do that.
Okay. I see. No, that's interesting because I've never really, I mean, I invest in stocks, but I just do the typical, you know, Roth IRA, you know, or like just like, you know, health savings accounts, you know, just the regular safe bet ones. But it's something that I would like to study more on and get into because, you know, it's something that's very hard to do. And, you know, if you know what you're doing, you can get a really good ROI once you know, really know what you're doing. Okay, so let's go into, go ahead.
Break. I would like fight against that with like every fiber of my being in terms of like the more you know in finance, like it like can only hurt you. The best strategy is like the Jack McDermott Vanguard, like go for an S&P, get your guaranteed like 8 to 12% rate of return. Like that's all you should be targeting, and it's safe and it works. And over the course of your life, if that's your retirement account, like you really like can't go wrong if you follow that strategy.
Okay, so it's your advice then. And again, this is not a financial advice page, everyone. Just so we know that.
But if it was, they would say the same thing.
Yeah. But you're saying just save bets, VOO, Vanguard, S&P.
Yeah, I mean,
just chill on it.
Is the name of the game. The Fortune 500 is like, you know, it's been is what we've tracked for the longest time, and we can, with very high degree of certainty over a long period of time, tell you what you're going to make if you follow that strategy, and it's a lot.
Nice. Okay. Okay, going into your professional life now, I want you to walk us through like, all right, so you're at Notre Dame, you apply for Deloitte. Where did you apply at? And like, did you apply on the website, internship fair? You know, who interviewed you? And you said the interview was pretty cutthroat, cut and dry. Like any specific questions you can give to anyone who is in that position, and what to expect? What did you expect? How were you feeling? Things like that. Like walk us through your emotions and everything. Yeah.
I'm sure I initially signed up for the interview at some sort of like career fair. The interview took place on campus. It was back to back, like a Saturday, Sunday. Really couldn't have been more convenient for like the students applying. As far as getting the interview, I'm sure it was just like a GPA, quick look at the resume, that kind of decides if like you're a good candidate, and then like on paper, and then the interview is more just very behavioral. I've taken very few technical interviews in my life, and of the ones that were technical, they were about as like not technical as they can get. So really like these, like it does seem like they're just looking for someone that they could work with. I do remember one, them asking one like class coursework idea that I thought was interesting that I could like bring to, in this case, Deloitte, like whatever company I was working at. And my answer was, it describes stochastic modeling, which is kind of the whole like idea behind my major, where you're solving a math problem using a computer's ability to randomize a certain variable and iterate an event 10,000 times, and then just take the average of those events. This is a very common application in all sort of like computer probability. So my favorite like example to describe that process is, imagine you're taking the area of a super weird, like an oddly shaped, non-geometric shape, and you want to find out the area of that shape. Well, a super easy way to do that would be to plot the coordinates of a square around that super crazy shape. And in a computer, all that's saying is I'm randomizing an x coordinate between 1 and 4, and I'm randomizing a y coordinate between 1 and 4, making this square around this crazy shaped object.
Okay.
In that box, I'm randomly generating an x and a y 10,000 times. And if that x and y random coordinate falls inside the shape, I'm going to flag that as a yes. And if it falls outside the shape, I'm going to flag that as a no. And then you just take the average of the yeses over the nos, multiply that proportion by the area of your super easy square, a 16, you know, like square, 4x4 square, and you'll get the area of your crazy shape. So there's like simple applications of like using computer's ability to randomize a variable and iterating that variable so many times to get an average result is like, I think was a good thing that they saw that I could do.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's very, that I feel like that dives into like critical thinking too, right? Like being able to think.
You know,
like,
if they asked me the question of like, you know, how do you think this works? How would you go about solving the area of this crazy shape? And I just pulled that out of my butt. Like, that would be pretty amazing. That would be critical thinking for sure. That's something that I've become like intimately familiar with, that like idea.
okay.
So not as much, more just, you know, like memory recall, but.
Let me see how I would, the way I would do that, finding the area of like a randomized shape. Well, you're saying using computers, right? Because I was going to say I would just break it up into quadrants, and then take the limit, right, to infinity as the shape curves in the different quadrants, basically like an integral. And
but
then
imagine finding the integral that would define like a super crazy curve. Like, I mean, that would be incredibly difficult. It could be like impossible for a human. Like, you just draw a random shape. For a computer, like it's all the same.
I see. No, yeah, it's very smart. Yeah, that's a very, very smart methodology right there. Yeah. Okay, so you get the interview, and then what were you hired on for?
I was hired in their, I think it was just called like an analytics group division. I don't know. We were under, not consulting, but what was the group called? I don't even remember. Instead of like giving them a strategy, we gave them a product. Was like the difference between our group and the consulting group. And the product that.
So you made the products.
What did you say?
So you made the products.
Yeah. So especially in my internship, we made like models that would classify things and created interfaces that on-site consultants could use, like networking interfaces that like consultants could use to like in a secure environment access our database at a client site and like upload information related to the files they're going through. It was like building interesting products, frequently using modeling. I went to the same company after graduating, and there wasn't even an interview after that. It was just like, you did good in the interview or in the internship, like, do you want to work here? Which is pretty lucky. Definitely made senior year pretty relaxing. When I worked there full time, I was in the forensics group. So that meant I was basically trying to identify fraud using like transaction volume or like variables related to transactions, like person A in a transaction, person B in a transaction, the amount of the transaction, the dates of transactions, using the different data that could be associated with transactions to identify cases of fraud that were not caught after some cases were identified. So once like a company found out that person A is stealing from our company, they would say, we know that these 4 transactions that we found are instances of this fraud or theft. We have 7 million transactions over the last 3 years. We need to know how much this guy stole from us in order to like know what to charge him with, to what to submit to our insurance company to get that money back. How can we approximate that value of what he stole? So then from there, we frequently use a cluster model to just identify transactions similar to that like flagged population of transactions.
So that if it happens again, you could flag it.
If it happens again, yes, but they've probably already caught the guy. And then we're just approximating the total value of fraud as part of that instance that they caught. So we're looking through their entire population of transactions and identifying like, to some degree of certainty, like which ones are related to fraud, not just the ones they like are certain that they know they found, but other ones that look to be the same type of fraud.
Okay, I see. And I was going to say in engineering, we create models, but we also create simulations, right? So simulations are made, and then we test our models with the simulations to see if the models work, right? Is that similar in your field of work? Like, for example, when you create these models, do you have something simulating it, like a random generator of fraudulent activities, and see if your model catches those things? When
you're doing QC checks, quality control checks on your model to see if it's working, absolutely, you would at the very least, you'd want to see what your model's identifying. I've only been involved in one project that used a neural net. So to my understanding, that's like the type of models that you wouldn't be able to really see what the model's calling out and like how they're identifying similar transactions. With all the models we use, for the most part, a cluster model was like 90% of the model that we use. It's very easy to like backtrack and see this model is defining this exact bound of this variable to be highly predictive of being related to our fraudulent transactions. Across another variable, it's this bound. So it just gives you, like a multi-dimensional space that like fraudulent transactions all fall in.
Yeah. And what language were you guys using for all this?
For almost every Deloitte project I worked on, it followed a very similar framework where we would get data sets in Excel. We would upload those data sets to some database. We'd use SQL to manipulate the variables within that database, kind of build it out, make it run faster, create different keys, different tables, linking different tables, and then just like cleaning up the data, making sure the dates are formatted like dates. It's not, as that data is being loaded in, it's not corrupting any of the data. It's not cutting off text columns to only a certain number of characters. And then once your data is clean and in the database, then we'd run it through some model, which we would script in Python. And so this would be like a model overlay that would end up adding like 2 or 3 columns to the end of our existing like main population table, main database table. And those additional columns would be our prediction of relevance. In most of my cases, the prediction that like that transaction is related to a fraudulent transaction to a certain percent. And then you have a threshold where if that percent's over 90%, 70%, we would mark that with a flag. And so it'd be like a yes or no column for the model output in terms of like the flag.
I see. Yeah, and
Sorry, I forgot like the main last step is like, because we're a consulting company, you have to like show our work. We would always then feed in those like tables to Tableau dashboard, and that's where we're like showing the client. We're either giving them like live updates of certain like KPIs like at that time, or just like describing the population that we're reviewing and what subset of that population is we flagged.
I see. Yeah. So I was gonna make a quick comment here. I like the way you broke down what you did at the firm. Because of most consultants, I don't know if it's like an NDA thing, but when you ask them what they do, it's they speak on a very, very high level. Is it something that is it because you're working at the company so you can't really disclose much, or is it just consultants just don't? I don't know.
We're always allowed to describe our projects in abstract terms. I'm not supposed to use bank names. I'm supposed to use, it was a large global bank, you know, like they give you some language to define these projects.
I see.
Now, a lot of consultants, they're on that like, you know, like strategy side. And I feel like that is just a lot harder to describe what you're doing. You really do have to like, you're defending your final recommendation in a unique way every time, I would imagine. On the side where we're building a product, you know, if you're a company, you're going to like define a system for building that product, and you're going to build it a similar way every time. Kind of a tried and true. You know that this will sell in the marketplace, so you stick with it. So because we're building something, there is a more standard framework.
I see. A big thing currently in like, especially when I was teaching in the university level, and when I was in like my tail end of my PhD, is AI. Basically, how do we integrate AI into, you know, the workplace, into education, because we can't run away from it, right? It's everywhere, and it's gonna help us. It can help us, and it can also be detrimental to us, right? When you worked at Deloitte, I don't believe AI, or at least the main one, OpenAI, was a thing yet, correct?
So, commercially available, very, you know, like generalized large language models were not a thing. But
yeah,
I had like,
but let me just finish and say, but do you think currently the workers there use it as well? And do you think that it makes their job easier? That was the tail end of the question.
Certainly it like levels up the capability of any employee that familiarizes himself with using these generalized large language models. If you're using specific models for writing script or, you know, a specific purpose, I think that's probably even better. They only add value to you as an employee. On the current projects I'm working on, these softwares, like using a ChatGPT or equivalent, is super common. Kids coming out of universities are very, very familiar with using these tools, and they're using them to like a high degree of efficiency or effectiveness. They're able to produce a product, whether that be through a script or perform a certain duty using a certain type of software. They're able to do like these things that they would otherwise have no idea how to do with just some guidance from one of these models. It does take some understanding of the subject matter you're working in, but with a very limited understanding, you're able to follow the instructions that these models give you, or follow that guidance and try different things and end up with an effective solution.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm a very big advocate for AI. I think like it's a good tool. And I think that when you're going through like the university level, your professor, or even in high school, your teacher should test you, right? Like in real time, right? You go to class, you maybe get a quiz or you get a test, right? And those tests will be the metric for if you pass the class or not, right? Not necessarily like the homeworks, right? Because yes, on the homework, you can use AI, you can use the internet. But when you come to class, it should integrate it where, hey, if you give me a certain set of homeworks and I come to class, I get tested on a problem that was on the homework, you know, so that I can actually spill that information out, you know, from my brain, not just from a computer. But yeah, it was just something interesting that I wanted to ask.
To expand on that
yeah.
more,
Mm-hmm.
this I'm on your side where like I think that this is like an unbelievable tool that's going to continue to get better as time goes on. It's already gotten so much better. Early on in Deloitte, I had like limited exposure to 2019, 2020, much more simple large language models, much more simple neural net models, and it's insane like what a simple version of these models was able to accomplish on the projects that we worked on. Their rate of learning was like pretty astounding on like any old computer. You could get to like a pretty high degree of accuracy when you're categorizing text as related to certain products, or transactions as related to other transactions. I was just like blown away at the effectiveness models 5 years ago, and that's when I was like building them much more like familiar with how they worked. I can only imagine like what they're doing nowadays, and the proof is like, I mean, I'm seeing people use it, and it's making them do like pretty awesome things. So
I know an uncle of mine. He's a Scrum Master, and he talks to me about how nowadays, because he works with different types of computer science, data analysts, financial like consultants. They, in the corporate world, all they care about is how fast a product can be pushed out.
Is that what Scrum is? I'm not familiar.
Scrum Master is someone who kind of manages, like a project manager, or manages projects. And all they care about is how fast a product can be pushed out. So if you have two people coming out of college, one knows everything but doesn't know how to use AI, and one kind of knows everything but knows how to use these models to advance, to speed things up, and he's pushing out products, let's just say, in a week before the other person is, 9 out of 10 times you're going to pick the student B, simply because all they care about is deadlines and how quickly you can push these things out, which is something I found interesting. Okay, so let's go into, this is going to be maybe, depending on how you want to answer this, but you don't currently work at Deloitte. Is there a reason why you left, or?
I just didn't see. So I left pretty quick. So I interned there for a summer, and then I worked for like a year and 9 months, maybe even a little bit less than that. I didn't really see like a future there. I actually enjoyed what I was working on. Kind of the projects that I like interned with were much cooler than the like strictly banking data projects that I worked on once going full time. You can only look at like transaction data so many times. It's literally all the same. And also like your client is just a bank, which like at the end of the day, you don't see the impact really at all. But what really scared me was just like seeing my managers, seeing directors in that industry. Like, you're still sitting at a desk responding to messages. I mean, the amount like of time these professionals put in, again, not like really building something that they can look back on and be like, I made this. It's kind of just like you're in the grind, and you look back and you spent 20 years at a computer, and that is like not something I wanted to do. So it was a pretty easy choice. I was young, COVID, like take a chance, and I did.
I think that's very awesome. I think that a lot of people get complacent, right? I think people get complacent. They're like, this is, and like you said, they're 55, 60, about to retire. And like you said, they've not built anything, right, with their life, right? They've helped build another person's company, but they haven't built their own, right? Just because this other person was, kept paying them and everything. So I think that's a very good reason that you had to leave, and I commend you for making that decision. But let's go now. So when you quit Deloitte, you enter your entrepreneurial lifestyle, right, as a business owner. So let's talk about that. And it's called Jack's Handyman for those of you who want to ever look into it and hire him.
Well, you're open. I could give some great references in the Chicagoland area.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, but hey, maybe another. Maybe it's just temporary, right? Maybe we'll reopen or no.
Different name, something much more
Different.
official.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and talk to us about your transition to that. Yeah.
So, I mean, initially it was now the transition into entrepreneurship. That was always the goal. Was like construction was an industry that I thought could lead down that path. It's very common to lead down that path.
Mhm.
But it was really, I mean, like it's a super physical. I left Deloitte to become a framer in the mountains of Utah. So I was swinging a hammer, firing a nail gun, building the wood structure that makes up like awesome, beautiful mountain homes. I did that for like 6 months, and it was like the best time of my life. Like there's no better job. I mean, if pay is not a factor, which I got paid $12 an hour, it was essentially not a factor.
Yeah.
It's the most fun thing you can do. I knew that like that just like dipped my toe in construction. It was a fun break from the consulting work. Love the physical nature, but like from the beginning, construction, I knew that like this is just like awesome. That you can do this and make money. And maybe you can't make money if you're the one swinging the hammer every day, but at least like no matter where you are on the chain of employee or owner, and everywhere in between, you have like a very real final product that you can look back on and be like, I built that. Like that's just like so rewarding. And every day you get that that feedback that makes you want to keep coming back and doing it more. Eventually, I'm trying to order how my trajectory has been since leaving Deloitte, because I've bounced around like between construction and the more like banking, data analytics roles numerous times. But after that initial framing job, I did pick up another consulting job for a short-term contract. It was the pay like excited me. Like that was a nice break. I knew that I wasn't going to stay being a framer. So I was kind of looking for a change in construction anyway. So just kind of like feed that 3-month gap. Like I figured why not fill it with this contract that came my way. So I was introduced to a contract consulting platform, NBO Partners, and they've like kind of allowed me to create a super flexible career path where I can jump into construction, and then whenever I get the inkling, I can go back to consulting for short-term contracts.
That's the PwC.
So we're not allowed to say, like,
okay.
I've never worked for PwC.
Okay.
On these like consulting contracts, I only work with people that are working for PwC. So like,
okay,
that's the relationship.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay. All right. But no. Okay. So
give me another.
Okay. But yeah, you moved to Chicago. How long did you do? How long were you doing the Jack Handyman company for?
So after that stint, I joined a more like a residential remodeling company, the 4th largest in Illinois. They're Synergy Builders. Like loved the company. Worked very intimately with like their lead carpenter or their CEO. Just like felt like I was given an unlimited amount of like learning potential through that company, basically as much as like I wanted or was willing to put in the effort to get. And working there kind of made me feel comfortable after taking another short consulting stint, building up the bankroll like a little bit, to start my own company in construction. So I knew my wife was in medical school. She was going to be starting residency in a couple years. I knew that I didn't have, forever to build a company. And like, since building a company, time in the arena is like so important. It just, everything gets easier over time as long as you don't go out of business. So like, I guess there's a balance that people don't last forever, but if you make it to that first year, it's easier to make it through the second year. And I think it continues to get progressively easier as long as you're not taking like insane risks at every step of the game. So with that in mind, like it was a short-term dip your toe into entrepreneurship that I tried to like explore as much as I could through this little like semi-established company under an LLC, Handyman Jack.
Okay. Would you say that what you studied in college, ACMS, your ACMS degree, like somewhat helped you doing any financial stuff for Handyman Jack?
I said my 2 takeaways of college was understanding of like learning to read functions and scripting.
Mm-hmm.
And going along with learning to read functions is kind of like having the self-confidence that you can like learn whatever you want to learn kind of on your own terms. You don't need to go to school to learn it. And so it gave me the confidence to take that step of like, even though this is in the construction industry, which like does not have any immediate corollaries, just believing in yourself that you can figure it out was like a takeaway. I did try to build semi-successfully a model that would categorize my expenses by like taking a photo of my receipts, and it would extract the text from that photo and tell me where it's from, like where that receipt's from, what like Home Depot, whatever, how much it was and what date it was purchased on. And that's kind of the information you need to like for like tax purposes, to just like record that expense. You need the photo and a description of that photo to easily sum your expenses that you recorded over the course of a year or quarter for your financial statements. So I like tried to use like scripting in construction. I wouldn't recommend it. Like I put probably like 20-ish hours to build like a very simple like receipt classifier. Business 101 is like hire everything out. And as long as you're still making money after doing all that, you have a good company. And if you're not, it's just you're always going to need to be like personally involved in that step. You're just paying yourself an hourly wage for whatever you can't hire out, which
that's true. Then
you're just an employee at that point.
Yeah, that's kind of what I try and do with my business. Is I try and cut costs as minimal as much as possible, and I know how much I'm worth an hour. So again, if it's something that's going to take me 5-10 hours of my time, I say, okay, you know what, maybe I should outsource this. And because again, it's also about being in it for the long run, right? You don't want to burn out, right? So if there's something that you'd be doing for 10 hours a week, just know, and it's not slowing down, can you do this for 10 hours every single week for the long run, right? And if not, then you should outsource it, right?
And there's just so many things to do. I mean, like from the legal side, the accounting side, the actually doing the work, like it's too many different directions that you're trying to do it all yourself would be impossible. You would get stuck at every stage in the process. So like to have any sort of direction and making progress as a company, you do have to hire out what you can. That said, it's like so easy to have your fixed costs grow to a point that holds you back. And so you do need to be careful what you're spending money on, but if you're spending money on something that's replacing a process, there's value to that money that's being spent. And you can probably calculate how much value you're getting from it.
100%. Yeah. No, yeah, I like that. A couple more questions, maybe 1 or 2 more questions. If I am an electrical computer engineer and I want to pivot to quantitative finance, what skills or experiences would you recommend? Again, so you can start off and talk about if I was in high school, what I should do. If I was in college, what I should do. And let's say I'm in the profession already of electrical and computer engineering or any type of engineering background, but I want to pivot to finance. So the questions are, what skill or experience would you recommend? What would make me stand out when applying for different banks and trading firms? What would you say to them?
So I never worked at one of these quantitative trading firms. Don't really know the answer to this question because I never got accepted to one of these firms. But I did want to work.
Or just in finance in general, right? Consulting in finance.
So I mean, I think the best place for an engineer to go, if you want to get into corporate finance, be a finance major. But if you want to be a quantitative trading guy, be an engineer. That is the best popular thing you could be to get those roles. In high school, that means like just getting the best grades you can, getting into a good school, because those firms only recruit from very good schools. And then in college, it would be getting really good grades. And if there's one thing you could practice, I practiced it. I didn't get good enough, but I practiced it. Was for whatever reason, these companies are really interested in you being able to do relatively simple math very quickly. And so, doing like 3-digit math or 3-digit addition and subtraction, and like 2 or 3-digit like division, multiplication, and especially like estimating the outcome of these 2 or 3-digit subtraction, addition, multiplication, division problems. Like for whatever reason, like that seems to be something that across the board, all those companies are looking for. So you can like practice that quick math skill, and you definitely get better at it. Like I think it takes a certain type of kid that like can answer these questions as fast as they want you to answer them. But it's like that actually helped me a lot. Just like I enjoyed putting in a relatively limited amount of time into like improving that skill. And in construction, that's like absolutely paid off. I mean, you're frequently finding the center of a span, which is like simple division. You even like go up to using like algebra, but that like simple addition math is like super helpful throughout life.
I see. I'll go ahead. Do you have something else to add?
And then like as early as you can, probably like involve yourself with these companies. I know that like being more on a programming side helps, but like at the end of the day, they really are just looking for like really smart kids. So they're looking for the engineers, for the physics majors, for the math majors, and especially if you can go on and get like continuing education, like pursuing a master's or a PhD in those fields, like would absolutely make you a much better candidate for those companies.
Okay. So what about, again, this is just to mix things up here. What about someone who is currently in nursing, right? Already an adult, maybe in their 30s, and wants to follow this path, wants to divert to, a financial banking or something like that.
Go back to school. Yeah, I mean, like, while all of these skills practically are very easy to understand with like, currently available like YouTube University, for whatever reason, all the companies, like I would think that every single one of them that hire in this space like require the degree. So, and probably a degree from a specific school that they recruit from. And like that is just kind of the name of the game for that industry. That's kind of the sad part about some of these jobs, because I've looked at some of these jobs already in the past, and there is no such like boot camp or like YouTube University certificates or things like that you could take to get in this space. It's really just like you said, you go to the right school, get a degree, either be a bachelor's or master's or PhD. That unfortunately will get you your foot through the door, and you got to know people as well, connections, right? Okay, so I like to ask this to all my interviewers, and every single one of them have given me a unique and awesome answer. And I'm going to ask this to you as well. So what is one piece of advice or words of wisdom that you would want to give to the audience? Could be anything. I think that it's like, I think that you know about yourself, whether you're someone that wants to make work a big part of their life. And if you don't want to like maximize the time working and you want to maximize the time living, like enjoying hikes and with your family and maximize your like personal free time, I think you know that about yourself, like honestly, pretty early on. And I think one of these corporate jobs is like, you can manipulate it, you can treat the job in such a way that like you are maximizing that time, and you can view that as like being complacent. That would be like the negative view of that person. But like, I think that's like the ideal setup for someone that like wants to maximize their lifetime, and like you're gonna be comfortable. Like you know the expectations for you. You can keep the job. You get better at it over time. You can spend less and less time on it. If you're the person that wants to like, for whatever reason, is like driven to work, then I mean, I wouldn't know yet, but it seems like a good idea to try to build your own company, because it's going to be like really hard at the beginning, but you have a chance at.
So essentially, you know yourself better than anyone, and you should, depending on the path you want to take, you should take it.
Yeah, and don't be afraid too to be like, work is not my life. Like, that's like a good path. That's probably the path that we should all be taking. But for whatever reason, if you want to make work your life to a degree, you always got to make time for other things. But if you want to be working, like even if it's just like 60 hours a week, like more than the standard 40, get creative with like how you view your career, because there really are like so many doors that can open with just like taking the step towards that door.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like that. I think that most people, like you said, are kind of scared, or they don't know what could happen if they do take this leap of faith or this leap of what they want to do. So they just stay like comfortable in their own shoes or where they're at. So if you're listening to the video, definitely listen to your gut and take that leap of faith. Yeah. Well, thank you, Jack. Again, I know it says Timothy on the video, but he goes by Jack. So it wasn't like a mistake on my end there. Do you have anything you want to shout out, any platforms, or you just cooling?
Michael Pruitt and Hui Quinn were my favorite university professors.
Okay.
Also, shout out you for having me on this awesome podcast. I've been a long time listener, so it's an honor to finally be on the other side of the video.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And you definitely be back. You definitely be back. All right, Jack. Thank you very much for attending my my podcast.
Thank you.
If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Please share my YouTube channel and subscribe. Thank you.